We are Blake Lovell, Max Barr, and Chris Lee of Southeastern 14 here to preview and predict 3 SEC basketball games from Wednesday night, February the 7th. Those will be LSU at Tennessee, Texas A&M at Missouri, Georgia at Mississippi State. We'll have Alabama, Auburn in a separate video. And, of course, we've already done Tuesday night's games and other videos. We do every SEC game in basketball every week. So let's start by reminding you that these are brought to you by BetOnline. It is playoff time. The usual suspects are heading to Vegas for the championship. Our partner BetOnline is your number one source for football odds, stats, trends, and lines, with everything from point spreads to hundreds of bets on everything from the coin toss to the color of Gatorade. BetOnline is the number one source for your championship wagering. Head to BetOnline, join today, get in all the action. BetOnline, the game starts here. Well, the games start at 6 Central on Wednesday night in Knoxville. LSU and Tennessee on the SEC Network, they'll be having a food fight in the Food City Center, I guess. Is a food fight if the spread is double digits? I don't know. I don't know how we're going to do this. We need to come up with a way. In any case, Tennessee will be a favorite playing in Knoxville against an LSU team that's pretty tough. Tigers shot the lights out over the weekend, and Tennessee, on the other hand, went and got maybe its best win of the season with the victory in Lexington. Max, what have you got on what do you think the line will be and all those things?
Yeah, so predicting the line, I think it's going to be – I have it at 14.5, favored for Tennessee. I could see it going down as low as 12.5, but could also see something like a 15.5. But somewhere around 14 is where I have it pegged. Starting out, looking at just spots, because that's what I like to do to start out. You have two teams both coming off of big road victories, so they're both coming off the same type of game, and then they both have a big game on Saturday. LSU's got Alabama, Tennessee's got to go to Texas A&M. So kind of this, you're not seeing a spot advantage either way. What you see is what you get with this one. Blake has been all over it pretty much every game that's been at Tennessee when we have a high-flying offense. Now, I don't know if I would call this LSU team a high-flying offense, but, man, they can shoot. And they've shown that time and time again that they can put up points. They can. And we've seen what teams that can put up a lot of points end up doing when they go to Knoxville. Now, I know South Carolina kind of broke that fortress, handing Tennessee their first home loss. But, man, you got to imagine that Rick Barnes and Tennessee are going to want to bounce back and not fall 2 straight home games. So I think there's motivation on both sides, kind of the same thing back and forth. You're going to have a team that's going to try to shoot the lights out in LSU, and you're going to have a team in Tennessee that's not going to let them. So I'm interested. You got a lot of guys that have played a lot of basketball, Jordan Wright, Jalen Cook. They're not going to be scared going into Knoxville, but they got a tough test in front of them.
What's interesting about LSU is they're one of the few teams that seems to be just fine with shooting the 3 on the road, which is not the case for most teams in the SEC. They've made at least 9 in 6 straight games overall.
They shoot it.
But they made 11 of 28 against Alabama, 39%. They made 10 of 23 against Georgia for 44%. Even go back to the one where they played at Auburn. They lost by 15, of course, but 9 of 23 for 39%. So they're shooting well above the SEC average in their last 3 road games. Now, there was the one before that where they still beat A&M, only went 6 of 24. So that's what's interesting about this team, and they do get a decent chunk of their points from 3. So, of course, that's going to matter, because if you don't get those points, then you're going to have a good chance of getting blown out against Tennessee probably, because they also try to get points from the free throw line. And, again, that's going to be hit or miss, I think, sometimes when you play in Knoxville. So it just depends on, how the game's going to be called, all those things, because we know, as always, Tennessee is going to let you know they're there. That they're going to basically, as we said, kind of do to everyone what South Carolina did to them last week. So that will be what I think will be kind of the big story here with LSU is, can they go in and find enough points and find enough of those open looks? Because they've been able to find them against Alabama, Georgia, Auburn, but can they do it against Tennessee, who just I know they gave up a lot of points to Kentucky, but I still think Kentucky's on a different level offensively than LSU. So, and LSU's also a team, as we said, that will turn the ball over a little bit, and that's not ideal either. Going up against this Tennessee team that I think it's like if you're playing the law of averages here, it's like there's no way Tennessee can play as bad at home as they did in the last game. So that's also something that doesn't seem to be in LSU's favor here.
Okay, look, this is going to be a 12 to 15 point spread. And when you're doing a game like that, if you watch us, one thing we always try to do is give you the other side of the coin, that if something unexpected were to happen, which that has happened a lot in college basketball this year, although generally the unexpected happens more when the underdog is the home team rather than in this case. But if it is, I'm going to give you guys two quick things to watch. Blake mentioned one of them, LSU's three-point shooting. I think Blake mentioned it. Might have been Max. But this team has shot the ball very well from outside. Now, Tennessee defends the three fairly well. It's got great guards on the defensive end, and so maybe that gets neutralized. And this, I don't think this thing is really the advantage that it looks like statistically, but I'm just going to throw this out there. Bench minutes. Ken Pom has LSU 24th in the country in minutes played by the bench. Tennessee 294. Maybe you could argue that if it gets into a foul shooting contest, by the way, LSU shoots 73%, not great, but not terrible, that maybe that favors LSU a little bit. It's got a few more guys to go to. Now, look, I would say that maybe Tennessee's bench doesn't play as much because its starters are so good, and LSU's talent's a little more spread out than Tennessee's, which has got several stars and established guys. That's a long way around saying I'm trying to find a place where LSU can win it. Those are the things that seem most obvious to me, but even under scrutiny, the latter, I'm not sure it holds up super well.
Yeah, when I'm looking at, I think we just said it. We said it in one of our last few videos, but we were talking about what does Tennessee not want to see? What's kind of their Achilles heel? And so far, what we've seen is very slow play, making it a half court game. Do not let Tennessee get out and run offensively. And, that's what South Carolina does. They play the slowest tempo by far in the league. And kind of surprisingly, I didn't really catch it, but LSU plays the second fastest tempo in the SEC offensively in conference play. They're just ahead of Alabama for offensive tempo. So that kind of, when I'm looking for angles for LSU and I'm thinking, okay, well, man, if they can slow this thing down and just make big shots like South Carolina did and make it a half court game, this double digit spread might be a little bit disrespectful. But then I see LSU, just loves to get out and run offensively. And that's one thing that this Tennessee team just eats up. So I think it's kind of a bad matchup also, just kind of stylistically for what this Tennessee team likes to do this year.
Yeah, I don't know if we've made picks yet, but give me Tennessee. I think they're going to be in bounce back mode here at home. This is just a different style, as you said, Max, than the South Carolina game, and I think that benefits Tennessee. So, just the kind of game they want, coming off a similar type of game. I don't think this one's going to get 100 to 90, but I can see Tennessee putting up some points here. I can see LSU hitting some threes, putting up some points, but you're not going to pick against Tennessee to lose back-to-back home games. So, picking the Vols.
All Blake said, I think the South Carolina game will end up being a big thing for Tennessee. I think it showed that Tennessee had gotten too reliant on Dalton to connect. You saw other guys participate in the scoring and the offense in Lexington. You saw what happened. Give me the Vols in this one. Okay, 8 Central, Texas A&M visits Missouri. You can catch that on ESPN2. Missouri now the league's only winless team. Sean East looked like he hurt an ankle in that Vanderbilt game. He did come back, but his production was down. I'm not sure he was the same guy. A&M got a big win over Florida. What do we think the spread is going to be on this one, Max?
I've got a 3.5 point spread favoring Texas A&M. I could see it maybe up to 4.5, but I could also see people trying to back Missouri here and after an A&M letdown spot a little bit as they get a 1 point win at home and then have to go on the road And so I could see maybe Missouri being like plus 2.5, but somewhere around 3.5 is what I have. And yet you also, not only do you have a little bit of a letdown spot here for A&M after the emotional win at home going on the road, but they also got Tennessee on Saturday. So you maybe have a little bit of a look ahead spot. We saw that burn both Kentucky and Tennessee last week. They lost their early week game looking ahead to the weekend. So, there's a little bit of value in that. If you want to try to look at it from a Missouri perspective. But I think this game is going to be it's going to be a scrap. It's two teams that won't shoot the lights out. They do a lot of one-on-one offensively, a lot of East and Bates one-on-one, a lot of Radford and Taylor one-on-one. I think that obviously when you're looking at the numbers, you're going to say, well, A&M's going to crush the boards, and that's just kind of the story with every A&M game. But I think there's definitely some paths here for Missouri. This is a Missouri defense that we've kind of talked about their block rate often this year and their ability to protect the rim. And that's kind of all Texas A&M wants to get to. So you can kind of see, where this might be a little bit shaky for A&M. When at first glance, you would just see Missouri being over and pick A&M right away. But I think this one could get interesting.
Yeah, I mean, Missouri's, 0-9 in the SEC, but, 7 points, 2 points in overtime, 6 points, 8 points, 7 points, 7 points. So what? That's 6 of their losses or whatever.
I got to get one of these.
Like, they've been right there with a chance in a lot of these games. And at some point, for a team that everybody talked up, their Ken Palm luck rating and all that last year and how it was so high, and maybe they just got lucky, and maybe they did in some instances because they won so many close games. Well, guess what? It's been the exact opposite this year, where I don't even know what was their record, like 7-0 and 5 points or less type games last year. This year, it's like it's the reverse. It's all evened out to where it's gone in the opposite direction, where they just can't find a way to win these close games in SEC play, at least. Of course, they did win some close games in the non-conference. But so, yeah, I mean, I would expect this to be another close game. I mean, just because that's been the theme for Missouri, that they've had opportunities, and now they're playing a Texas A&M team that can't shoot the ball for anything. And so if A&M goes on the road here, struggles to shoot it well, although Missouri's defense will probably give them some opportunities to do that. I just, it's kind of the same situation, right? If you go back to the last game, remember these two teams, about 2 weeks ago they played. So it wasn't that long ago. And we went in saying, what's going to be the difference here? It's going to be the offensive rebounds, right? It's going to be Texas A&M just destroying the glass. And they did out-rebound Missouri. I think it was 41-30 5. But they had 15 offensive rebounds. I don't know exactly how many second chance points they had. I'm sure it was quite a few. But, yeah, so, I mean, A&M went 9-25 from 2 in that game, 6-27 from 3. They shot 37 free throws. So that is something else. Missouri's got to play defense here without fouling. They can't let A&M get to the line because that's exactly what they want to do because they know they can't shoot. And so, I mean, honestly, I think Missouri can kind of copy a similar game plan that they had last time around. They just can't let A&M get to the line that many times. So it's easier said than done when you're not a great defensive team. So I expect it to be close, but it's like which part of the matchup is going to be what decides the winner here, because maybe it's just as obvious as going with the offensive rebounding, or Missouri fouling too much and A&M getting to the line like they want to, or maybe it's something else. Maybe it's Missouri's breakout game and they just find a way to outshoot A&M here. I don't know.
All right, let's start with picks. I'll start with mine. I feel like Missouri is due to beat somebody at some point. I feel like this team plays hard. We like Dennis Gates as a coach. All jokes aside, think the world of what he has done there and what he can do. A few things, though. I thought Tyrese Radford finally looked more like the Tyrese Radford we thought he would. We have hit A&M's offensive struggles to death. And they're going against a Missouri team that's just been awful defensively. Number two, I was watching Missouri and Vanderbilt on Saturday. Missouri looked like it was going to run Vanderbilt out of its own gym. And then he hurt his ankle and came back. It was a different game. I think Tamar Bates has really carried Missouri a lot. but there's going to be more focus on him. If East is hobbled or not himself, they're a little easier to guard. Now, they got Noah Carter, they got Nick Honor, they got some other parts, but they're not take over the game types. I just feel like A&M, if Radford plays better, that takes a lot of load off of Wade Taylor. If I were more confident on East's ankle, I might pick an upset here, but I just can't. I'll take the Aggies. Max?
Yeah, so what I'm looking at here, look at just real quick, A&M's wins at home in conference play so far. They've got 3 of them. They beat Kentucky in overtime by 5. They beat Missouri by 6, and they beat Florida by 1. Their losses, they lost by 3, they lost by 1, they lost by 11, and then the big one to LSU by 15. The largest margin of victory in conference play so far is 6 at home against Missouri. Even when Texas A&M wins, they are barely winning. They're not blowing anyone out, and they're not holding leads. They don't shoot well enough. They don't have enough offense to hold the leads. I'll be honest. I think A&M is going to crush the boards again. I don't know how, unless Missouri just gets an unbelievable effort from their big guys, from Carter and some guard rebounding. Everything points to A&M being able to crush the boards, but this is a pick not based on any number, not based on anything. It is solely based on Texas A&M coming off of a 1-point win at home, now going on the road, looking ahead to Tennessee at home on Saturday. I'm going to go with Missouri to get their first win of the season right here.
Well, all right. I don't have a lot of pressure on me. I can go either way here and be all right. So, look, A&M had Missouri's number last year. If you remember, there weren't a lot of teams that had Missouri's number, but A&M did. They beat them by 18 in College Station. They went in, beat them in Columbia by 9. Somewhat of a similar theme. They got to the free throw line quite a bit in one of those games. I want to say it was the first one. They shot 32 free throws. In that one, they also snagged a lot of offensive rebounds, as you would expect then. And so, I wonder if that's just it. Missouri just defensively does not have what it takes to be able to, I don't know. They can't put them on the line a lot because you have to just make it simple. You have to just say, hey, if you're going to beat us, you're going to have your best 3-point shooting game of the season to do so. Everybody with a foot in the paint, you guys take as many threes you want to take because the numbers will tell you that that's just not a recipe for success for this Texas A&M team. And so, they went 6 of 27 from 3 last time against Missouri, 22%, as I said earlier. So they did take quite a few. But I don't know. I told you. I think this is all to spite me. This whole Missouri losing streak, and I want to pick them too, but man, I'm going to keep trying the reverse mojo until it works, and it's not working right now. But I'm just picking Texas A&M because they did have their number last year. They beat them in a close game a couple weeks ago, and I think Max said something about the look ahead, and I think there is something to that. But I think this team is just snake bitten at this point, and so I'll take the Aggies in another close one.
A&M really needs this one too, guys. If it's going to continue to make a charge towards the tournament, and it's kind of a bubblish team as we speak. So seems like A&M's got a little more to play for here too. All right. Also at 8 Central, Georgia visits Mississippi State. You can see that on the SEC Network. Mississippi State coming off probably its worst performance of the season. And speaking of the snake bit, Georgia just cannot hold a lead and close it. We continue to like that team. This is one, if you're Mississippi State, you're really glad it's home because you play pretty well in the hump. You need a win. And I think I haven't even looked at it. I would think State's probably a 6 or 7 point favorite, Max.
Yeah, I have it at State -7, but
Okay.
with the DJ Jeffries injury news, I feel like it could creep down to 5-ish, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we have 2 teams that are both coming off of losses. You have Mississippi State coming off of the Alabama loss, Georgia coming off the South Carolina loss, both double digits. So you have 2 teams kind of looking to bounce back, and then you have both of them going on the road on Saturday to Mississippi State to Missouri and Georgia to Arkansas. So kind of the same situation for both teams here. Both in similar places in the standings. I feel like this is going to be a close game. I don't think a -7. I think -7 would be too much for how competitive I feel like this game's going to be. I do have a theory though, and it is not proven. It's not backed up by anything, but I like to call it the first game injury theory. And there's something about a team when one of their starters goes down, that first game after that, they just play out of their minds. All the role players, everyone knows that the margin for error is now decreased, and they've got to play harder, play tougher, play smarter, can't turn the ball over. And we'll probably see Sean Jones step in for DJ Jeffries, very similar. I mean, obviously Jeffries is probably one of the better perimeter defenders in the league, but you do have a backup that can play big minutes and has played big minutes before. And for Mississippi State, I don't think they're going to take much of a blow in this first game, because I think the crowd will be going nuts and the team will kind of rally around DJ. As for Georgia, Chris, you've been all over it with in the group chat. Every time Georgia plays, it'll be something like a text will get sent like Georgia can't kill them. Georgia, you just can't put them away. They're always fighting, and I feel like this is going to be a game against a Mississippi State team that's not going to put up a lot of offensive numbers, where Georgia, with their spacing, they're 4 out with Jabri Abdur-Rahim stretching the floor. I feel like this is a game where they'll be able to put up enough offense to stay in this thing. And so I think a 7-point spread would be too much. I think this thing's going to be really competitive.
I think it's going to be competitive, but I think it's going to be ugly. I'm not as convinced this is going to be high scoring.
Oh no,
I think this is going to be a grind. Yeah, I don't know. Like Mississippi State, as we've seen, some of the ways that Mississippi State has to win is how they beat Auburn. I mean, 64-58 type game. I think that's how they need to win this one. Because again, Georgia, I don't think is bad defensively, but what I was sort of trying to point out with their offense is why I said I don't think they have the offense is I don't think they have the offense that's good enough to be able to withstand like the obvious runs that some of these great offensive teams in the SEC are going to make. Like their defense just isn't going to be able to slow them down at times because, like I mentioned, I just don't think they're great in many areas. And I think that's kind of the problem. And so this is one where Mississippi State is in desperation mode here. And I just think they're going to make it hard on Georgia offensively. I could see this, like I said, being a pretty low scoring game. And maybe it's not overall, but maybe it's just Georgia that does a little bit of a low scoring performance here, just because I think this is kind of, this is kind of win or go home for Mississippi State at this point. Like 3-7 may not feel that much different than 3-6, and they've got a favorable schedule after that, but they can't be dropping home games to teams that are not projected to make the NCAA tournament. They can't do that right now. So I think just matchup wise, they're going to come out. They're going to be aggressive. They're going to be all over the glass. And I think those are areas where they can take advantage of this game and kind of what we see with Georgia, some of the same themes we've talked about throughout the year. And, I just wonder if Georgia's going to be able to shoot the ball well enough. We've said, Mississippi State is a top 10 team in terms of their 3-point field goal defense. But when you look at it, some of the better shooting teams they played in the SEC have done just fine making threes. So, they gave up 12 at Ole Miss, 15 against Alabama, which I think Alabama just throw out because it's Alabama. So, yeah, I think that's kind of what it comes down to. And, but if you look at how teams have shot against them in Starkville, Tennessee goes 8 of 29, Vanderbilt goes 5 of 22, Auburn goes 6 of 24 from 3. So that would worry me a little bit from Georgia's standpoint. Like I don't think they're going to get the open looks they need to capitalize and make Mississippi State pay for some of those things we've seen against better offensive teams.
All right, now we're on to the final analysis and picks. Max, you mentioned the DJ Jeffries injury, and he's probably State's worst offensive player for the minutes he plays. But he helps them on defense, and thought, that might not be a bad thing for State, because I think you and I are both big Cam Matthews guys. Well, here's the problem. Matthews tends to get in a little bit of foul trouble. Had 4 against Alabama. He's had at least 3 in what his last, since conference play started. He's fouled out in there twice. I do worry about that eating into State's depth a little bit. But look, and I think this one will be close because that's just what Georgia does. And maybe this is a night where a Melinda steps up and leads him to a win, or a Demery or somebody like that, or Blue Cane gives you 15. It could happen. I just need to see it from Georgia first. I think State's an older team. I think it had its back against the wall in this spot a year ago. State, I don't know who State is ticked off at the conference office to keep getting these first half SEC schedules. But what happened is it made this team tougher a year ago, and it went on to win enough games where it got in the tournament. I think we're looking at something like this ahead. State can't play much worse than it played against Alabama. The Jeffries injury is more problematic than I would have thought at first, but give me State to win this anyway.
Uh-oh. I have a feeling we're headed in a certain direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris, I like it. The main reason why I think that there's 2 reasons why I think the DJ Jeffries injury isn't going to impact them that much in this game. One, because they just played back-to-back away games and now they're coming home. So the place is going to be rocking, right? And 2, if you look at one thing I really like about KenPom is you can see like the past 5 game lineups, who has been on the court for what percentage of time at what positions. And Sean Jones has been pretty much an even split at the 3 with DJ Jeffries over the past 5-ish, 6-ish games. Jones is actually a much better shooter. He's 7 of 19 in SEC play, just under 40%. So I feel like in a game like this, at home, first game off the injury, I can see Sean Jones, guys like Shaq Moore, Davis. I know that Keshawn Murphy and Trey Fort are both day-to-day, so we could see one of them try to play through a little bit of injury here shorthanded. I'm going to go with the home team here, rallying behind a starter that has gone down in the last game after 2 road games. Give me Mississippi State in the bounce back.
Mississippi State. That's all I got. Straightforward.
Beautiful.
I think it's a bad spot for Georgia.
Beautiful.
Mississippi State wins.
And good point. Jeffries and Matthews really do play a different spot, but there is a little bit of a domino effect where guys get switched around and such. So anyway, thank you for listening to our SEC predictions. We'll do Alabama and Auburn in a separate video. We'll recap all these when they're done. For Blake Lovell, Max Barr, I'm Chris Lee. You're watching Southeastern 14 presented by BetOnline.